Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming on to the show. Today, I have my friend and highly esteemed colleague, Rebecca Garity Pinto. She was one of the first people I thought about when I decided to launch a podcast. There was no question in my mind, by the way, Rebecca, like zero question in my mind that I'd be reaching out to you about doing an episode. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm just excited that we get to catch up.
Me too. I really no offense, audience, because I love you too. No offense, but I really just want to hang out with Rebecca. And if nobody listened, I'm just kidding. I know we don't get a chance because of our busy, crazy lives to just connect with each other. I met you, at least I think, through the Fitness Business Podcast. Is that how we met?
I think so. Yeah, it was the during the pandemic, right?
Yes, it was. So we got connected because the Fitness Business Podcast, shout out FBP people, they connected us and they had a few of us. There were like maybe 6 of us, different names in the industry that were doing things, big things, and that kind of came from different walks and different walks of life and parts of the business. Actually, you and I were probably maybe the most similar in our cohort because we were both GroupX lovers. So I connected with you right away. I thought you were absolutely gorgeous.
Same, same.
Oh, and I remember that it was during the pandemic, and you and I decided to do on like Memorial Day. This is in mega shutdown. People were like desperate for fitness and connection, and they were very much, the world was stuck at home. And you and I decided to do you remember, a virtual class for the Wounded Warrior Project on Memorial Day?
Yeah, I do. It was so it was just that time where it was like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's make this happen. Right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I didn't even know barely what I was doing at that point, but you just bootstrapped everything. And it was so awesome to be able to collaborate with people that we would probably never get to teach together. With you, you're up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm in San Diego.
Exactly.
Um, and it was my first time doing one of your workouts, and it was so fun.
Same. I know. I was like, I guess I knew because I knew pieces of your history, which we'll get into when you kind of introduce yourself at length and about and how you got into group fitness. But I knew based on your career that you were an excellent instructor, but I didn't bat an eyelash. Like, let's teach together. And it was cool because we brought each other's, like, my community didn't know you and your community didn't know me. And I love, it's a perfect example of like abundance and, pooling resources and working together. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was so fun. And I still talk to some of those instructors that I met
Oh,
during that virtual class. Like we still stay in touch in social media, and it is just the beauty of fitness. It is the best people.
it is. Okay, so let's dive in to our episode. I want you to tell us how you got started in group fitness and kind of where you've been and what you've done and what you're doing. And ultimately, we are going to be talking about rejection is redirection. That is such a powerful title of this episode, and we're going to get there with you today, but we'll start from the beginning. So how did you get into group fitness?
So I got into group fitness when I was in college. I was a freshman in college, started working out at my local gym, and the group fitness manager saw me taking classes and was like, "Hey, you're pretty good at this. Do you want to get paid to work out and get a free gym membership?" And I was like, "You'll pay me to work out? Yeah, I'm in." And that's just, how it started. And I think it's like a lot of people, right? When you're taking class, somebody sees something in you, right? And whether, it's just instructor to instructor or maybe a group fitness manager, just somebody seeing your potential, right? And saying, hey, I can help you with this.
Yes. So you were college age at the time?
I was 18.
Oh,
Like I
oh,
was just,
yes, you're a baby.
this fresh young
Fresh as a daisy.
little. Yeah, had no idea what I was doing. Now I look back at, thank goodness there is before the days of social media that those things do not exist.
I know. So had you ever thought prior to her approaching you, had you ever thought to yourself, like, I would like to teach this? Like, had that even been a thought in your eye? I mean, a thought in your
No,
eye, a thought in your mind.
same area.
Yeah.
No, really, like I had joined the gym to do Pilates classes because I grew up doing ballet. And
Okay.
so, and this was in the early 2000s, right as Pilates was having its first big boom,
Okay.
right in the fitness world. But I had always known about it because I grew up doing ballet and it was very, big in the ballet world. But I was so young, I hadn't even thought about, what I would want to do as a career. I hadn't even selected a major in college yet.
Well, even if you had, you probably would have changed it because everyone changes it.
True, true.
Wait, okay, so did you decide to do it? You just like started teaching and she mentored you? Were you good or
Yeah.
was it?
Oh no, I was terrible at first, right? I mean, I look back at those classes now and I'm like, I didn't even talk. Like I was the girl that was like afraid to speak into the microphone. I wasn't scared to be up in front of people, right? I grew up doing ballet. So being on stage wasn't an issue, but I never had to talk on stage, right? And so I just had this little voice and like, hi, I'm Rebecca, which, I've grown out of. But she was like, I'll teach you how to do this. And it was very much a just, little piece by little piece, which I feel like I got a lot of support, which I don't know if that really exists in a lot of clubs these days, right? But she really guided me and mentored me. So shout out to Gina Beecham and, at the time, El Cajon, California, who just kind of took me under her wing and was like, this is what you need to do. You need to go get your AFA certification. And there was a pregnant body pump instructor going on a maternity leave. So she sent me to that training, which, turned out to be very monumental for me and my career. And also, she was the one that was like, hey, I'm going to IDEA, this convention. You need to go with me. This is where you're going to learn
Oh,
how to teach these other formats. So it really was a great place where I had support, someone to guide me, a mentor, kind of show me the way and, kind of show me around the fitness industry. And it also gave me the opportunity to teach a lot of different classes because we were just, a small club and she, whatever she needed, I was that like young Ever Beaver, like, okay, yeah, I'll get up at 5 a.m. Yeah, I'll teach the 7 p.m. class. I
yep.
don't care.
I've been there too. So do you still keep in touch with her?
But I call her my fitness mama because without her, I mean, my fitness career would not have been born,
I can't even
right?
believe that she basically spoke Les Mills and idea into your, like, I can't believe it. Like, again, like, but for her, your whole life would be different today.
Right. It
That's,
is one of those like butterfly effect
oh yeah.
moments, right? It just sent me down this whole other path. So
Okay.
I'm very grateful.
You started getting better. And is this in San Diego? I don't remember that piece.
San Diego, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, and then when did it kind of, so you started to get good at it and you started to love it. And then did you finish college? Like what happened?
I did. I finished college. I thought that I wanted to work in health, but I didn't necessarily want to be a full-time fitness instructor. Um, because I knew what the pay was, right? And so I had some, what I wanted my life to look like may at the time require maybe a better salary. So I thought I was going to go into health promotion,
Okay.
right? How do I help people live healthier lives? Like I thought it was a great connection.
Wow.
Um, and so I went to work at a local healthcare system here in San Diego. And I quickly realized, like, oh, this is not about getting people healthy,
Oh,
right? This is sick care, basically. And like, this isn't the point of the stream that I want to be in.
Right. Got
So
it.
I was finishing up my degree, kind of trying to figure out, am I going to go to grad school? Like, what's my next step? And I was already a certified body pump instructor at the time. And I heard that Les Mills, at the time Les Mills West Coast, was coming to Del Mar. They were moving their offices to
Oh.
San Diego. And I was like, oh, I'm getting a job there. Like, this is happening. They don't even know it yet, but I'm getting a job there.
You
This
just
would be like,
manifested it. You just said it
I
was gonna happen.
did. I did. And, you know, for months they weren't emailing me back. Come to find out they were going through all these like transitions, that email didn't even exist anymore. So I had
Where was that?
another,
What year was that?
this was 2007. So
Okay.
I had just gotten married, just out of college. And I had a friend who got invited to, they were at Idea World in San Diego, and they asked him if he would help build some barbells for their session at Idea World, and he was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I will. I'm there.
Oh,
Like, I'm going to show them, like, I'm going to meet
they
them in
need me.
person, I'm going to put together barbells, I don't care.
Yes, you're
And
like, I'll sweep the
that,
floor.
whatever you need,
Yes.
right? And that very week I got a call for an interview.
Uh,
So I got my job at Les Mills because I went to Idea World.
oh my goodness. Your whole, like, it's so intertwined. It's all
Right?
so intertwined. Okay, so also, I love that you have and had that work ethic. I'm of this cut from the same cloth. Like, I will I will pick up the garbage. Like, I will do whatever it takes, and I will, and I know that there's pushback on this, but I'll work for free. Like, I want money and I deserve to be paid well, and that does matter and that does exist, but I will do the thing to get there. And like, I love that you built barbells, that idea, and then you got the job. So you'd already applied, they found your email or it got bounced. So did they know who you were when you were there building barbells? Kind of, or no?
Maybe they were able to put two and two together.
Okay.
It did happen very quickly, right? Of like, you're assembling, 100 barbells and laying them out on the floor in like 30 minutes, right? It goes by very quickly. Um,
Oh my goodness.
and it's sometimes, like, honestly, a lot of the positions that I've had in fitness, or just in my career and my life, whether it was a new gym that I wanted to teach at, or it just comes down to, like, you got to get out and meet the person, right? So if I want to teach at Fit Athletic Club, I'm going to find out who the GFM is and go take her class and meet her face to face. And,
Yes, you can't
it's putting
expect
in
them.
that little bit of
They're
work.
busy. Yeah, you can't expect them to, like, it takes some follow-up, and it takes some follow-up on our part, because like, even with me just hiring an instructor, I'm not always going to respond to the first notification I see that someone has submitted an application. But if they follow up, I'm like, okay, they're
Mhm.
serious. Like, I almost wait for that. I was going to ask you something about, okay, so plus there was also the manifest part. Like you said, I'm going to they're moving here. I'm going to work there. Like, that attitude also, like, this is happening. Like, you believed in yourself. You believed you had
I
something.
I did, and it's not that I'm like a big manifester. I know I'm, aspire to be that, but it was just something, like, I already knew. I
Yeah.
just knew it was going to happen. And there's a few moments in my life that are, like that, that I didn't question it. I was really confident about it. I just knew it was going to happen.
Ugh. So what was your role there? Matt, were you like, I know, go ahead. So you started working there doing what?
Training and events. So I was, this was 2007. Online did not exist, right? There was nothing digital. So, putting trainings on throughout the West Coast when we'd have a new club launching, okay, they just decided to bring on body combat. Let's work to build a training. How do you get enough instructors to attend the training so that, you have a nice training group, right? A good experience down to, packing I called them trainer boxes of like, here's your sign-in sheet, here's all your physical releases, right? Because there was absolutely nothing digital at the time.
Oh
Here's
my,
all your workbooks.
oh my gosh. Okay.
So, it was, it's a little like getting down and dirty, packing boxes, and then also quarterlies, right? So at the time, we were traveling around every 3 months, finding clubs that would host us or, putting together some bigger mega events, which were so tiny, but mega for us at the time.
So was there, you said Les Mills West Coast, so were there different divisions across the country and you were West Coast region?
Yeah, we were the West Coast region. This was back 2007, 2008, right as Les Mills was really coming into like Les Mills International was coming into the market. So they had a bunch of different distributors in the US. So they had South, East, North, East, Midwest, right? Sarah Cooperman, Fitmark
That's
in
right.
the
Yeah.
South,
Yeah.
in Texas, and then us on the West Coast. And really, we were the like little baby agency because there weren't a lot of clubs that had Les Mills on the West Coast at that time.
So you were like packing, getting all the supplies ready, everything they would need, the trainer would need, but weren't you also leading the trainings?
So I didn't start leading the trainings until 2010.
Okay. Okay.
So, I started, of course, teaching, and then, I was teaching body pump. Then I worked full time there, putting together the training and events. And then in 2009, by this point, you can think of like Les Mills West Coast at that time kind of as a startup, right?
Really?
This was before 24-hour had their programs.
Okay.
I would call hotels trying to find space for a quarterly, and they're like, Le who?
Ah,
Les Mills?
no
Right?
way.
Nobody knew who Les Mills was, right?
I will that.
Um, Now it's very different. Like people are in kind of people are like, huh? I'm like body pump. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. Um, so in
Yeah, I
2008,
feel like everyone knows who Les Mills is. I don't know when that started, but like I'm just gonna say this in case there are listeners that might live under a rock. Like Les Mills is like the like Le- Les Mills is like the king. They are just a mega international company, like a
mhm,
monster, a giant in the industry, and they have these licensed programs. I taught body pump for 24-hour fitness for many
yeah,
years. Yeah. Okay, so carry on. So then you started in 2010 doing trainings
mhm.
for body pump.
Yes, for body pump. So in 2009, I was actually living up in San Francisco with my husband because Les Mills had moved their offices up there in San Francisco financial district. And this was 2009, the Great Recession. My husband lost his job because he was doing IT for hedge funds, and 2009, not a great time for the market. So he, was pretty quickly able to get another job, and he had two job offers, one in San Francisco and one in San Diego. All my family's here in San Diego. And so even though I thought I had my dream job, right? This was something I really wanted. I chose family over this career, and came back to San Diego in 2009 and was like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? And at the time, Idea was hiring, so I got my job there. And at the same time, there was a call for trainers and presenters for Les Mills. So I, sent in my audition tape, went to the boot camp. I went to boot camp for body combat,
Okay.
went through the weekend, and they didn't take me for combat. They sat, they would pull at the end of the weekend, they pull everybody in, for like a one on one. and they're like, we're, what we need you to do for combat isn't something that you can just like turn around and do in 3 days. You need to go back and, study MMA, do some boxing so you can look real and authentic and not like a ballerina doing combat. Um,
Literally.
literally.
Yeah, literally.
Um,
So did they say, but did they push you to body pump?
we'll take you for body pump. And I was like, just in shock because I was like, but I didn't do any body pump while I was here.
Yeah.
I don't, but it all, worked out the way it was supposed to, right? So in one sense, some rejection, and then in another way, some redirection.
Hey, I want to tell you something. I had a similar experience with Beachbody. When I heard they were auditioning for master trainers, I went and my audition was in Arizona. So I like flew and went there, and I was, I've always been like a tomboy athlete. I play sports well. I move like that, like, and what I was never good at is anything beautiful or graceful or like dance or yoga. So I just was an athlete mostly. So like the brands that really spoke to me were Insanity and P90X. So that's what I went to audition for. I mean, I was dabbling and I was doing PIO and stuff like that, but I went into some like it was like my I think Insanity or audition, and I went into uh like a low lunge and then like a twist and reach my hand up, I guess, like really beautiful. And then similar, they were like PIO. And I'm all
Like,
stretchy and stuff like that. So anyway, they started me that, yeah, it wasn't what I thought or what I was looking for. And then it was,
oh my gosh. And look at where
I
it's
know.
taking you now,
I
right?
know, I know, I know. So anyway, I had to butt in on that one. But okay, so you started with body pump and then you started training. I bet that was exhaustive, like exhausting, but I mean exhaustive. I bet that was so comprehensive, the training you had, just because their instructor trainings are incredibly comprehensive and rigorous. So I bet the master uh training or boot camp, whatever you call
Yeah.
it, was incredible.
It was, I mean, just it's one of those experiences that you go through with people. Like, if you, there are other things in fitness like it. I think when you go through an instructor training, right, you're vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there, and you kind of go through that bonding experience with people. So, it was definitely a really fun group, a group of people that, I'm still connected with and keep in touch with.
Like
And
your family,
but
you're
yeah,
like,
it's a little bit like we're going to break you down before we build you back up.
yeah. Yeah, I just remember my body pump training was so rigorous, and like the standard was so high, the bar was so high. We really I don't know if it's still the same way, it probably is, but it was like a 2-day training, full day, and where it was like just, brutal. And then we come back like 2 weeks later for one full day. I don't know if we had to like,
You
we had
went
to be
for a
like,
run.
like
Yeah.
physically fit. Like we had to run,
Yeah.
like we had to be physically fit, like we had to do stuff. And then we had to practice teaching, we had to memorize a song and or two. Anyway, it was a lot. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're definitely, I think
me better.
anytime you go through a training, it becomes like, especially one where it draws from you physically, right? It is just a transformational process in your teaching, but just you grow as a person, right? It challenges you in new ways and you find strength that you didn't realize you had.
Okay, so you started doing training for body pump, but also what happened at IDEA?
So an idea, I got a job there as the event coordinator, working on Idea World, supporting the programming department. So working with all the presenters and the companies and to put together such an event of that size that, and also this was like 2010. There weren't, we didn't have an event app. We didn't have
Right,
like,
you didn't have
all the
Smith.
things that you think of now.
Right.
And
And
so,
again for just maybe someone that doesn't know, like IDEA is it's really kind of the pinnacle. It's like the biggest fitness convention in the world. It's the Mac Daddy. So, okay.
it just it takes a lot of people to put together an event of that magnitude. But it was very different than working at Les Mills, right? From the sense of we're going to put together an event for 200 people. The biggest event that I had done at that time was 500.
Okay.
To you're having 10,000 people for a weekend and just working with so many different types of people, whether you were a personal trainer, a group fitness instructor, yoga instructor. And it really gave me, and I had gone as an attendee, but it really gave me a different view of the industry that just being attached to one brand kind of gives you that tunnel vision a bit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it kind of opened up my perception of fitness.
Yeah. Okay, so then you did events with them for how long? How
I
long
was
were
an idea for 10 years. I mean, the beauty of it was that I was able to transition and do some different roles while I was there. And I started on the event, then I transitioned to online education and supported. We had companies using our white label learning management system. So working with TRX, ACSM, Exos, they were all using our education platform. Helping them put together their online courses. How do you market your
Ah,
online courses? Taught me a lot about account management, relationships, um, working on Fitness Connect. So, working with all of the continuing education
ah,
providers and
ah.
how all those pieces work. It is just, CCs, that's, you know, any shout out to anybody that does those applications. If you do those applications, like you are a saint. And then I worked on Club Connect as we were launching that LMS specifically for clubs, and then transitioned back to the events. Found my way back to event programming, which I think was, you know, while I learned so much from the different roles that I did and the different people that I worked with, I think event programming, that was by far my favorite role that I did there, which was putting together the event program for Idea World and really getting to work specifically,
You
finding
building
out
this,
what
were you building the schedule?
mhm,
Okay.
of like what is the new upcoming thing
Ah,
that trainers want to know about, or what are the pain points right now, and then getting to
yes.
see all of that like come to life
Yeah.
um, was really fun.
Were you solo in that position or were there others helping you with it?
I mean, we all worked together as a
Uh-huh.
team. So at the time, there was probably 8 or 9 people working on building the event. We had a sales team
Right.
working with all the sponsors. And then, we had a larger team that kind of, when you work at Idea, or at least when I did, even if your role wasn't directly tied to the event, around the event, everybody worked on the event, right? Like, because it was such a massive production.
Okay, so how does, like, I want to make the big segue here from these epic roles that you've had, huge companies, huge titles. How does that relate into the rejection and redirection and where we're going with our episode today?
Well, I think anyone to stay in a career for, like, I've been in fitness for 20 plus years, you're going to be met with rejection. And I think as fitness instructors, right, we go out to audition at a new club, or maybe we submit our resume or application and we don't hear back and we think it's us and decide not to move forward. But if you really want to have that longevity in your career, you've got to view rejection as redirection. And also decide, I've been told no a lot in my career. Like, I was told, no, we don't want to take you as a body combat trainer.
Right.
We don't think you fit. But, they said, you need to be authentic. So I studied, I worked with an MMA, a Muay Thai coach for 2.5 years to fit that role, right? And at the time, I didn't have kids. right? So that was something that I was able to take on and turned out to be really, really fun. So you've got to enjoy the process of it. And then, eventually 2.5 years later being told, okay, yeah, you're like, oh, you look good. Like we can see you've been putting in the work. All right, we'll now take you as a trainer and presenter for combat, which, not in all cases, I think if they told me that now at this point in my life, I'm not going to go spend hours at an MMA gym and not be with my kids at night. So,
It was
also,
the right season.
mhm,
It was the right season. I think that about my life too. Not to keep interjecting on your story, but the things I'm doing right now, traveling all the time, and there's no way I would do that if I had little kids. I have an empty nest right now. I had kids when I was
mhm,
young, not little, but when I was young. So I have the energy still
mhm.
to travel and do things, but there's no way if I had little ones. There's no way I would be on an airplane all the time or be doing conference
Yeah.
trainings. And so yeah, it was the right season for you.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're interjecting, right? Because I want people to see themselves in my story and take something away from it. It's not just like, hey, look at me, but instead, like, how do you take this lesson and apply it,
Right.
right? Of
Yeah. And I think one is to know, because I like that you also said when we like no one doesn't face it. No one in our industry is gonna not deal with bouts of rejection. And so when you face it, to just have the faith and belief that there's a bigger picture that it will turn into, that it has the potential to turn into something else, is to
if
have
it's something that you really, really want, right? And sometimes we have to trust the process. Like you going to that audition for P90X and getting chosen for PIO. I mean, at that point, you were probably a little disappointed that you weren't chosen for the thing that you were there for and loved and didn't understand this whole PIO thing. And then now looking back, you can see the
right
pieces.
thing. Yeah. Yeah, it totally hindsight. So carry on. I did jump in. Were you talking about so did you leave Les Mills?
I did. I feel very lucky that I made the decision to kind of, at the time they were partnered with Reeboks. So I say, hung up my Reeboks at the end of 2019. I had my daughter in 2018. So I had my son in 2015 and was kind of figuring out how to juggle, still working at IDEA, be a mom, be a wife, and go do trainings here and there. At that time I was trying to do one or two a month, but that was still a lot. Luckily at IDEA, speaking of seasons and, when you have little kids, I was able to reduce my hours at IDEA to 24 hours a week. So it really did create some nice balance for me. And I was really lucky that I was able to do that. But I will say the only reason why I was able to do that was because I asked. So
Oh, good one. Good
they weren't
one.
going to come to me and say, hey, do you want to work
Right.
24 hours a week? I
Yeah,
came to them and said, hey, this would be my ideal, and they were open to it, and so we were able to work it out.
what you wanted and what you needed. That's another great nugget. Okay,
um,
so you had your daughter in 2019?
I had her in 2018, and I
Oh,
going through the postpartum period, I'm like, no major decisions for the first year,
oh,
right?
smart.
Like you are sleep
Another
deprived.
takeaway. That's another takeaway for no major decisions during the postpartum years. Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, you can't really judge how life is going to be in that first year because it is just so crazy. And so I think I was maybe going back to my first or second weekend away after having her. And I had a new role at IDEA. I was working a few more hours a week. And I just realized I loved doing it. It just wasn't the main thing for me anymore. That I didn't really want to be gone. My kids were the priority, and I felt like it was a disservice to the instructors that were there. And I should pass the baton to the next person who was ready to like give their
Oh,
all for
exactly.
that, right? And I had done it for, almost a decade. And now looking back, I'm so glad that I was able to make the decision because so many of, you know, didn't know what was around the corner in 2020, but a lot of my friends were let go from the training team because at that time there were no trainings needed, right? As kind of when the world went upside down. So I was grateful that I was able to make that decision for myself when to say goodbye, when to hang it up, versus I know a lot of people in 2020 that
Right, you
decision
didn't
was
have the
made
choice.
for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And then,
But
so, yeah, so then
no, go ahead.
no, you go. I was just going to ask you then how you, the redirection piece of your story. So, you having kind of breakups with these, I mean, not breakups in a bad way, but breakups with these big companies. And I'm sure there was a huge part of your identity tied into like Les Mills idea. So like, how did you turn into like what you're doing today with your group fitness, your online studio, and all the things you're doing today? I mean, I don't know if you were going to say something else first, and then you can get to my question later, but that's kind of where I was going to go, is like how and where have you pivoted to today?
Yeah, I was going to say, really what led me to what I'm doing now was, while I didn't face the rejection of being let go from the trainer team in 2020, it was getting let go from 24-hour fitness in 2020, where I ended up teaching there for a decade, right? Because even though I was working at Idea, even though I was still training and presenting, I still was teaching weekly classes, right? And during the pandemic, I was on that fateful conference call where they played a recording, letting hundreds of people go,
Heard all
and
about that.
hard not to take those moments personally, but realizing this isn't about me as a person. I was literally just a number on the spreadsheet. The person who made the decision has no idea who
Mm.
I am and what I do and what value I bring. And just deciding in that moment to not let that be the end of my career, because it very easily could have been. It was the only gym that I taught at the time. And it was like this question of like, oh, is this it for me? Like, kind of at this turning point, my I just had my daughter. I just stopped training and presenting a few months before. So like maybe this is it. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe it's time to stop. And realizing that I didn't want 24-hour fitness to make that decision for me.
Ah,
Right? Like just because my time there is over doesn't mean that this has to be the end of my career. They don't get to decide that. I get to decide that. And so at the time I was teaching virtually and I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to keep doing this, but I'm going to figure it out.
yeah.
Um, and so that's, turned into working with people online now.
That was actually like the heart. That was like because Rebecca and I didn't talk about exactly what we're going to talk about. Like we just kind of, I knew what her topic was going to be, and I knew I was going to ask her about the topic. That's about it. But I follow you closely, and I had seen that happened with 24-hour fitness, and I was really hoping you would share and be vulnerable enough to talk about that. And I think that for many people that would have been like, that's it, I'm hanging up my hat. I mean, so many people were at that time anyway, kind of hanging up their hats. And I just, yeah, you could have basically um, collapsed metaphorically and just been like, this is it. I feel rejected. They don't want me anymore. But instead, your outlook on it was like, this actually wasn't even about me. This was a number. This was,
Yeah,
felt personal. It was personal, but it was not personal.
yeah. I mean, it's, I think in fitness, we put in so much of our heart and soul into what we're doing that it's, I can sit here and say, don't take it personally, but it
Right.
is personal. It's
I'm
personal for us,
And I'm sure you
right?
grieved the loss of like our classes become like
Oh,
families.
we were family, right? I spent 10 years of my life on Tuesday night,
That's right.
the same people, right? Like you get those, connections, but I've been through gym closures before. And I think that experience helped me be a little more resilient on like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like our connection, our relationships are stronger than these four walls. Right.
Yeah.
And I was never there for the gym anyways. I was there for the people. And so while I don't get to see them at the same spot every week at the same time, right,
Yes.
we can still stay in touch and there's other ways that we can connect and see each other.
Yeah, so I just want to interject and say that like whatever you are in the industry, whatever brands you're associated with right now, maybe it's Warrior, maybe it's Les Mills, maybe it's Pound, maybe it's Zumba, or whatever companies, big companies or facilities, maybe it's Lifetime, maybe it's EOS, like whatever you're kind of, it's easy. I do that too, to Lululemon, like associate your identity with. This is a good reminder, this episode, this conversation, to remember today, right now, listening, that like you actually are the brand. And while there might be things that color and shape and are part of like what you deliver and how you deliver it, that you're the constant. And the company you work for and the brick and mortar you teach in can and likely will change. It's okay. You're the brand. And if this is your passion and your love, you just redirect, to use Rebecca's word, you redirect. And in those redirections, we keep getting better. We keep becoming better versions of ourselves, like you're practicing Muay Thai and MMA example to get to that next, like we just keep getting better. Our opportunities just keep getting better. So yeah.
Yes, I love it. This is why we get along so well.
Yes, I know. I was actually trying to like be quiet because like so much of what you said, I was like, I want to talk about that too now because I feel the same exact way about it. Like, oh, so many things. Okay, so and then what? Where was I mean, where were you? I cut you off, I think. Just
I
in the
mean,
okay, and then your online studio. So
yeah,
was
so I ended up starting to teach online, helping people online with on-demand classes, workout programs, nutrition, and it kind of where I ended up. Of course, my first call was to the brand that I associated with, right, and had been with for so long, and I was ready to start a virtual studio with them. And the answer was no. Like, no, that's not what we do. We want to see your business plan. We need to see your lease agreement. I'm like, it's 2020. Nobody is signing a lease agreement because nobody can go. And so it redirected me to partner with Body, right? At the time, Beachbody. And it was, never in a million years did I think that that would be an avenue for me. But I think it is just staying open, right? I think a lot of us that have been in fitness, it's you may end up partnering with different brands because you're the brand, right? So you need to find somebody who aligns, or not somebody, like it could be multiple
yeah,
that align with you.
align and elevate, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. So, okay, I want to end our episode with a confession from you, just because it's how I end all my episodes. It doesn't have to be like nitty gritty, but did you think of some type of confession relating to your GroupX life?
I did. So I kind of had to rack my brain about this. Maybe it's because I feel like I share so much on social media, but I kind of feel like I'm an open book. But um, as somebody who loved working out their whole life, I grew up movement and music, dancing, and that transitioned into group fitness. But the second I got pregnant, I became another person and I absolutely hated working out. You could have told, like, I've heard all the benefits. I know it's so good for me. I know it's so good for the baby. But those were like some of the longest classes of my life because I absolutely hated it. They're like, it'll give you more energy. I'm like, nope, nope,
Oh,
not me. Like, I just could not stand it. Both times, like I mean, it just felt like I was invaded by an alien and I didn't know who I was for those
oh,
full really 10 months. But
you have morning sickness?
Oh, yeah, terrible, especially with my daughter. But so, try not to throw up while you're teaching. That's fun.
Oh,
Um,
did you teach through
but
the whole pregnancy? But pregnancy.
I I did I but I did cut down my class schedule a lot. With my son, it was like back to backs, and then as I was, pregnant with my daughter, I was like, okay, I can't do, I cannot be here for 2 hours anymore doing two classes. So, um, but it did give me this whole new perspective that I had never had before. Being somebody who always wanted to work out and enjoyed it, of like,
Oh, nice.
oh, that's how most people coming into my class feel, right? Like this isn't an enjoyable thing to begin with, right? We know if you stick with it, it
Right.
starts to become, you get the endorphins and
Right.
all those things where
Especially
you're
when
looking
you're
forward to it.
and especially when we are the instructors, like it feels extra good for us because we get to be like little rock stars for an hour, and you're right. It's a really good reminder.
Right. And it gave me more compassion and empathy for those new people walking in, for sure. And especially, that postpartum period. But
Well, thank you so much for taking us through the journey of your life and all the incredible, monumental jobs you have. You've had and held positions that people in our industry aspire to. And I love that you shared the 24-hour rejection story. I think that's thank you for just being open and brave and transparent about that. I can imagine like how that would feel, and I love what you did with it and what you're doing today with your life and your whole like it's like why you really went what you wanted to major in college. This is the front end of it. This is the other end of the stream, like you were to take it full circle. So how can people find you if they want to take your online classes or get to know you better or like follow nutrition plans or anything?
yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Rebecca Garity Pinto, and you can find my website, studiogroupxfitness.com.
Awesome. And we'll put it all in the show notes so they can easily click on those links. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life and having your kids come in and be on the podcast too.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, kids and all.
Yes. And I'm sure I'll see you somewhere soon because it's a small industry and our circles collide often.
Yeah. Are you going to be at World?
I am.
Idea World? I will be there.
Yes, it's a date. It's a date. I will see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. I have visitors.
Hello, visitor.
I can't believe I made it this far without
Hi,
them
kids.
invading.
Hi. I love it. These are the first kids we've had on the show.
All right. Give me just a few more minutes, okay? And I'll come down and see it.
Mama, I want to tell you something.
Okay.
I know what 5 times 1 is.
What is it?
5.
You're so smart. All right. I'll see you in a minute.
That's adorable. Okay, this episode is so fun because it's just real, raw, authentic. Talking
Uh,
about rejection, kids walking in.
yeah, that's what I bring to the table.
Cutting that stays. That is going in. Um, oh, so yeah, it gave you a new perspective of like, oh yeah, this isn't always enjoyable for people. Yeah.